Hello, everyone. Hello. Please, can you confirm if you can hear me?
Can hear you from my hand. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so you're all welcome to the webinar. This is the webinar on research and communication skills for future public health leaders. And I'll be moderating this session. So first of all, the first thing we are going to be starting with is the introduction and welcome. And I'm going to be introducing the speakers. The first speaker is Professor Sagan Friant. She is an assistant professor of anthropology, Penn State University, USA, and her topic will be quantitative and qualitative projects design for public health, communicable and non-communicable diseases. Please, can you still hear me?
Yes, thank you for here.
We can hear you.
You can hear you. You can hear me. Thank you very much. Okay, so our topic will be the quantitative and qualitative project design for public health, communicable and non-communicable diseases. Then we have Dr. Olubomi Ojelade, who is an health promotion and communication specialist, Diamonds and Pearls Earth, Education and Social Development Initiative, Nigeria. And her topic will be effective awareness and sensitization strategies for communicable and non-communicable diseases. Both our speakers have experience mentoring student researchers and have contributed to national health communication campaigns. So now I'm going to be welcoming Dr. Professor, my apologies, Professor Sagan Friant. You have the floor, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. Good morning from the US and good afternoon in Nigeria. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm just going to take a minute and share my screen. Can you confirm that you can see my slide?
Yes, ma'am, we can see your slide.
Okay. Great, thank you. If you have any troubles hearing me or understanding me, please just let me know at any time during the meeting. But welcome and thank you again for having me. My name is Sagan Friant, and I'm an assistant professor at Penn State, an affiliate of our Center for Infectious Disease Dynamics. My research focuses on human behaviors and the environmental conditions that lead to zoonotic spillover of infections from animals to humans. And for nearly 20 years, I've conducted this work in Nigeria. Today's session is about research design and specifically how qualitative and quantitative methods can be combined in outbreak investigations. Although my own work sits in the space of One Health, everything that I'll share today broadly applies to public health research and practice, and can be applied to both communicable and non-communicable diseases. But mostly I'll situate it within the One Health space. So here's our roadmap for the next 40-ish minutes. We'll start with why social science matters in outbreak investigations, and why this needs to be used or is valuable alongside a biomedical toolkit. Then we'll move into research design fundamentals, thinking about mixed methods, sampling strategy, and research ethics. The heart of this session is qualitative methods, how to conduct interviews, what observation reveals, the interviews miss, and how to manage and analyze field data. I'm focusing here on qualitative methods and mixed methods because I think there's a lot of opportunities for methods through epidemiology and research design on the quantitative side, but less exposure to qualitative methods such that we often don't even realize what we're experiencing and what we're collecting is qualified as data. We'll ground this in a real case study, a mixed methods investigation of zoonotic mpox in Nigeria that my team conducted. The analysis is ongoing, so this will largely focus on study design, but I think that that is appropriate given the topic today. And we'll close with some thoughts on translating findings into actual public health action. The first section sets the stage for everything that follows. Outbreaks don't just happen in a vacuum, and public health emergencies more broadly, they happen in communities. The biomedical sciences are essential for public health emergencies. They tell us what is happening. What, in the case of outbreaks, what the pathogen is and the severity of the disease. They can tell us about incubation period and transmissibility, and allowing us to estimate the size of outbreaks, what the transmission route is, and they can do all of this both in humans and animals through the veterinary sciences alongside the medical sciences. But what biomedical sciences can't answer is a critical set of questions, which is why people are doing what they're doing, what communities believe about the disease, and what would actually work here given the cultural and social context. And as future medical and public health professionals in Nigeria, understanding these dimensions isn't just an academic exercise, it will shape whether the interventions that you recommend actually get adopted. This is the most widely cited example of social science transforming outbreak response, and it's worth understanding in some detail. During the 2014 Ebola outbreak, first responders took over burial procedures to prevent transmission. And epidemiologically, this was the right call. But communities didn't respond well. The intervention started to backfire. People were hiding the dead and avoiding health workers. So anthropologists investigated why. They found that local belief held that the deceased needed to be touched with bare hands by family members to achieve spirithood. And this love touch wasn't superstition to be dismissed. It was a deeply held obligation with serious consequences to the individual and to the deceased if not upheld. And the perceived risk of not giving a proper burial outweighed the perceived risk of Ebola. And this was critical. Once anthropologists could understand this, they worked with communities to redesign burial practices. A white cloth was used instead of black body bags, and one family member was allowed to close the coffin with gloves on. And that family presence at the burial was critical. These changes created transparency, and these changes honored the cultural requirement while achieving also the public health goal. And the lesson here is that excluding local culture intervention design doesn't make that culture just go away. It makes the intervention fail. And for you as future clinicians and public health practitioners, this has direct implications for everything from vaccine uptake to treatment adherence. While the Ebola 2014 outbreak normalized anthropology in outbreak settings, it also confined it to the unnecessarily narrow remit of outbreak response. And today, a lot of what I'll focus on is the role of anthropology in One Health outbreak investigations, but with broad application to other public health issues. And typically, we think of anthropology as understanding the human component of this One Health triad. But anthropological perspectives can also help us identify and understand the interactions between humans and the environment that result in health challenges. Studying human-animal interactions tells us who is in contact with an animal reservoir or vector. And behaviors like hunting, farming, keeping animals as pets, handling bushmeat in markets, all pattern exposure. Human environment interactions indicated here by the red and green circles, tell us, for example, how land use changes can influence exposure to infectious diseases. Agricultural expansion into forest habitat, irrigation creating mosquito breeding grounds, or poor sanitation contaminating water all shape outbreak risk. And social scientists can map these interactions in ways that remote sensing and ecological surveys alone cannot. Understanding who engages these behaviors and why is at the heart of anthropology and tells us a lot about what shapes exposure risk. Human behavior is not random, and it's patterned by gender, age, livelihood, cultural practice, and perceptions of disease. What do communities believe about the cause and the nature of the disease? What are they willing to do differently? And what constraints do they face when adopting positive health practices? These questions determine whether interventions work. With this backdrop, we'll move on to the methods themselves and the practical toolkit. And I want to start with a bigger picture of research design. So before you collect a single piece of data, you need to make 3 key decisions. What methods will you use? Who will you sample? And how will you ensure ethical practice? And these decisions determine whether your findings are valid, trustworthy, and actionable. There's so much effort and time and resources that go into research. So answering these questions early and smartly can help increase the impact for the effort put in the long run. Mixed methods research is the norm in outbreak investigations, not the exception. It mixes qualitative and quantitative methods. You rarely walk into a new outbreak or public health emergency knowing exactly what to ask. Qualitative methods help you understand the landscape first. What do people believe about the disease? What behaviors might be driving exposure? What languages do they use to describe risk? Then this informs the design of rigorous quantitative tools. The most common sequence, especially for novel or poorly understood outbreaks and public health emergencies, is called exploratory sequential research, mixed methods research. It's qualitative first, then quantitative. The qualitative phase generates hypotheses and shapes the survey instrument, and the quantitative phase tests those hypotheses at scale. What distinguishes good mixed methods work is this thoughtful integration and using each approach for what it does best, and ensuring how these 2 phases can actually speak to each other in a meaningful way. I threw this in here so you could see that there are different ways of mixing methods and different research designs that have quantitative first, qualitative first, or quantitative and qualitative done in parallel. Sampling decisions are fundamental as they determine who your research applies to. In quantitative research, which I'll spend less time on, random sampling ensures that your results are representative of the broader population. And this is critical. This allows you to say that X% of people in this community have had contact with the reservoir or have had a high-risk exposure. In qualitative research, your sampling looks very different. It's often purposive. You're not trying to be representative. You're trying to achieve depth and variety in perspective. You recruit people who have something specific to contribute. These could be surviving patients, primary caregivers, cases, and those cases can refer you to contacts who had similar symptoms. A key principle for qualitative sampling is that you sample until what we call theoretical saturation. This is when new interviews stop producing genuinely new insights. This is a judgment call and not a formula. In rapid outbreak response, you may not reach saturation, and that's a limitation that we have to acknowledge. In-depth qualitative research on sensitive topics is often based on fewer than 50 participants, which means each interview has to count. Rapport, your depth of questioning, and the right probing techniques all really matter enormously with a small sample size. Ethics is a foundation of trustworthy research, and it's especially important in outbreak settings where participants are often exceptionally vulnerable. They've lost family members, they're frightened, and they may feel really pressured to cooperate with official-looking investigators. Informed consent means participants genuinely understand what they're agreeing to, not just a signature on a form, a real conversation about who you are and what the study is for, what will happen to the information, and what they will get out of it, if anything, and if nothing, being honest about that. They need to know that they can stop at any time and for any reason. On privacy and confidentiality, these need to be explained clearly at the start. You need to mean them, and anonymizing your participants should be built into your data management from the beginning. These principles align directly with your medical ethics training that guides clinical practice. It's the same that guides research practice. Now we'll get into some of the practical tools and the methods that you would actually use in the field. I'll focus on three: interviews, observations, and field notes. These are the core of qualitative outbreak investigations and often critical in public health emergencies. And each has specific techniques that make the difference between useful data and a lot of noise. Qualitative methods include an array of techniques, and the choice of tool depends on your objectives and feasibility, but also what is already known and what the field situation allows you to do. In-depth interviews are often what we would call the workhorse of qualitative outbreak investigations. These are open-ended narrative format. You're not reading from a checklist, you're exploring somebody's experience and trying to understand it from their perspective. Key informant interviews go to people with specialist knowledge. In a zoonotic disease context, that might be hunters who know which animals are present and how people interact with them. In a diarrheal disease outbreak, it might be water vendors or sanitation workers. Focus group discussions are best for understanding shared beliefs and social norms. They go to get a group of people together where things that individuals may not raise on their own come to light, and these naturally can emerge in a group conversation. It's also a place where people can argue about topics and reach collective conclusions and consensus on an issue. Observation is often understood or often underused in outbreak response, but it's powerfully precise because it reveals what interviews miss, behaviors so routine that people think to report them. Sorry, can you mute yourself? Thank you. Often, maybe the hosts can help to mute anyone who comes unmuted. Thank you.
Now we can't hear you. I think you mistakenly muted you.
Thank you. Thank you. Observation is often underused in an outbreak response, but it's powerful precisely because it captures what interviews miss, and what people don't think to report. These are the behaviors that are so routine that people think they're unimportant to tell you about. Structured questionnaires often come much later. These are the quantitative tools, once you have hypotheses from the qualitative phase that you want to test at scale. Field notes and social mapping tie everything together. And I'll talk and hammer a lot on field notes because they're so critical. They'll record your context, where things happened, when they happened, who was present, what the environment looked like. And without them, your interviews and your observations lose a lot of their meaning. So let me walk you through how the narrative interview looks in practice. You're often asking someone to reconstruct events that already happened. And these can often be very painful events, and your first job is to create the conditions for honest and detailed recall. Start with a broad, open invitation. We've heard about your experience. Could you tell us what happened? Then follow their lead. Don't interrupt with your checklist. We use memory elicitation techniques. These are things like calendars that can be particularly useful. Was it before or after the harvest? Was it during the school holidays? Anchoring to events the person remembers can help them recall surrounding activities that they might otherwise forget. We also ask about routines, not just events. What does a typical day look like for you? Often reveals risk exposures that a direct question about contact with animals would miss entirely. Again, because often some of these contacts or behaviors can be so routine that they're not something that people think to report about when you ask about contact or exposures. On setting, you need to find a private place and be guided by the cultural context. Follow their lead. Who needs to be present and who should not be is often dictated by cultural norms that can vary at very small and large scales. And fewer people in the room often means more honest answers. On recording, always ask consent to voice record your participants. Give the participant control of the recording device. And if they want to pause the recorder, they should feel free to. But don't treat the recording as a substitute for notes. Write alongside the recording and keep writing for a few minutes and keep writing and recording after the formal interview ends, as most valuable things are often sometimes said when people think that the session is over. I don't know is the most common data that you'll receive. And it can be really important, but it can mean different things. It might mean that the person genuinely doesn't know, doesn't want to say, or doesn't think you would be interested in. Context and nonverbal cues can help you distinguish between these various meanings of I don't know. Never push so hard that you get a false response instead of an honest I don't know. And this is where probing is critical to get people talking more. And there are many good techniques. Often we'll get participants on one end of the spectrum who wants to tell you everything that about their entire life. And then you get other very quiet participants. And for those, you can use different probes. Some include open probes. Is there a question?
No, ma, no, ma, you can carry
Okay.
on.
So you can use open probes. Tell me more about that to get people to keep talking if they give you a very short response. Echo probes are used by repeating the last phrase and waiting. So you said, okay, so you said you went hunting. And then they may continue to tell you more, understanding that you're interested in what they had to say, but that you want them to say more. Silent probes are often hardest, but they can go a long way. You just nod, you pause, you maybe write some in your notebook, and let the silence invite more speaking. And these grand tour or long probes at the start of an interview, tell me about a typical day, can get things flowing before you narrow on into specifics. You can also act like you know something or use something from a previous interview as bait for someone to expand on a topic. And these are often called leading or baiting probes. Observations are important for seeing what interviews miss. This quote is one of my favorite in research methods, and it captures something essential. Interviewing is a great way to find out what people think that they do. Here's a real example from my own work in hunting communities. When we ask hunters in interviews whether they take any precautions when handling animals against animal diseases, if they notice if an animal seems sick, if they do anything to prevent themselves from getting sick, the answer during an interview is almost always no, nothing to report. I don't know anything about this. I don't do anything. But when we observe them, we see something very different. We see hunters using plastic bags as improvised gloves when field dressing carcasses. We see hunters squeezing citrus juice and lime juice over raw meat to remove visible parasites, and also removing organs that have visible lesions. We see highly deliberate cooking practices where everything is cooked and nothing is left raw. And all of these function as biosafety and food safety measures, even if nobody is calling them that. None of these behaviors appeared in interviews. They were too obvious, too routine, too much of the daily part of life to worth mentioning, or they're not even done intentionally, but it's how people have learned to do what they have done, what they do every day. Observation is what revealed them. The practice principle for observation is this: approach everything with a deliberate naivete. Pretend like you've never seen something before, even if you think you know what's happening. Watch as if you don't know. And this happens often with me when I follow hunters in the forest. I've done this many times, but I take the position that it's a brand new experience, asking them questions that I think I know the answer to. And often I realize I don't know the answer, or that the answer takes different forms in different contexts. Focal follows, so like I mentioned, where I follow hunters, can be used where one person or activity is followed for a continuous period of time. And it can be particularly valuable for identifying behaviors in the context in which they occur. Note-taking during observations is non-negotiable. You cannot rely on your memory. You have to take notes constantly, and you have to expand those notes immediately after the observation before you return from the field. Taking field notes is vital during field work. During field work, we can keep notes in various ways, such as jottings or a diary or a log. I usually have 3 notebooks, one very small one that I keep in my pocket for jottings that I can pull out at any time during any activities. And these are used to quickly record issues that can be expanded upon later, or just single words to recall my memory later where I can expand on something. A diary is used to document personal feelings and perceptions of relationships, serving as an outlet for thoughts that are not intended for public sharing. You often these experiences can be deeply emotional, not just for the participant, but for the person who is engaged in the interviews. And a diary can be a really important outlet. A log helps track planning and actual activities, including who you see, where you go, what you spend, what you eat, and with whom. During field work, we're jotting constantly and always taking notes and expanding these notes daily when we return. Even if it's late at night, it's called unburdening the memory. One thing is not that we always say is do not sleep on your notes. you'll lose so much. So you need to carve out time daily to organize and expand on your notes before you go to sleep. This is exceptionally important in outbreak and emergency situations where transcription can be time consuming and may not be feasible, and you rely really heavily on your field notes. One warning I always give to those who want to use qualitative methods because they seem easier than statistics is that they are in for a rude awakening. Qualitative analysis is rigorous and time consuming. It involves transcribing interviews, coding those interviews for themes, identifying meaningful quotations, interpreting findings within the cultural context. And all of this requires skill and significant investment in time. In outbreak emergencies, you may not be able to do formal analyses in real time. What you can and must do is take meticulous field notes and debrief with your team every day and document emerging patterns as you see them. The daily team debrief is critical, both within your social science team or if you're working with broader teams, the whole investigation team, epidemiologists, clinicians, anthropologists, veterinarians sit together each evening to share what they found, identify gaps, and plan for the next day. Social science team shares their field note summaries, but also listens from other disciplines. And this cross-pollination often produces the most important insights. Now I want to bring this all together with a real-life example. This is a case study of mixed methods investigation of zoonotic mpox in Nigeria that my team collected. It illustrates how these methods work in practice, including what goes wrong, what you discover that you didn't expect, and how qualitative findings can directly shape qualitative tools. Sorry, how qualitative findings can directly shape quantitative tools. And I should say right off that this work would not have been possible without our Nigerian colleagues and partners at the Nigeria CDC, state epidemiology teams, and my own research teams. These partnerships are not just an acknowledgement, it's the entire basis for how this research was feasible. Mpox, previously called monkeypox, is a zoonotic viral illness endemic to West and Central Africa. And historically, outbreaks were dominated by animal to human transmission with very limited person-to-person spread. And Nigeria hadn't had an outbreak in almost 40 years when it reemerged in 2017. And the outbreak didn't look like what we had seen elsewhere in Central Africa and other endemic countries, where cases were predominantly in rural areas among hunting communities. In Nigeria, there was a highly skewed sex ratio, disproportionately male cases in their 30s and 40s, and cases were appearing in both rural and urban settings, including high-density confined settings like prisons and a naval ship. Epidemiological and ecological investigations were limited, especially in Nigeria, and had failed to identify any clear sources of infection or exposure risk factors, which meant that we were coming in with very little prior knowledge to work from. This is exactly the kind of situation where qualitative methods shine, when you don't know what questions to ask, or sometimes who to ask them, or where to ask them, or where to situate your quantitative studies. The design was exploratory sequential, qualitative first, then quantitative. The qualitative phase wasn't just a warm-up, it served two explicit purposes: identify potential risk factors for zoonotic transmission and guide the adaptation of the survey instrument. So this is a pipeline that we developed for this study, where we conducted in-depth interviews with known cases of mpox And based on those in-depth interviews, if we suspected zoonotic transmission, at this point, we understood that there was a lot of human-to-human transmission, but we were still interested in the ways that zoonotic transmission was occurring. So any place that we suspected probable zoonotic transmission, we engaged community-based research and a quantitative research, which was a random sample of human interactions with men, women, and children in the communities where cases with potential zoonotic exposures came from. The study recruited Mpox cases in Nigeria, which had been documented annually since the 2017 outbreak. Identifying and recruiting Mpox cases for these in-depth interviews required close collaboration with national and state level agencies, as well as first responders. And through these collaborations, the study team was able to identify and recruit confirmed cases. This flowchart on your right shows the process that was used. And while the details are less important, the takeaway here is that it was often a very complicated process that required working with multiple actors at the national, state, district, and community levels prior to even reaching a case. Sometimes it took weeks or even months to reach the case through such channels, but it would not have been possible without these partners. Recent cases were targeted for recruitment to reduce recall bias, which meant that the team was responding to cases across multiple states. And this rapid response can be logistically challenging. It also limits the ability of an anthropological team to build rapport with individuals and engage with communities due to the degree we expect, and I'm used to in other types of anthropological research. The next slide will briefly discuss some of the study tools that were used for this investigation. In-depth interviews explored the how, when, and where and why of exposure. To do this, the research team used techniques for eliciting memory, since human-animal interactions may be so routine or mundane that they are unlikely to be reported. Calendars were used to elicit major recall activities during the infection period, like holidays or harvesting of certain crops or school vacations, and included the areas that people went and the people they saw during this period of exposure. From there, the researchers were able to ask more specific questions about the interactions that may have occurred that led to transmission. In-depth interviews, as well as specialist informant interviews and focus group discussions, were also used to identify animals using local names. For example, one of the expected reservoirs of Mpox is the giant pouched rat, which many of you know is locally referred to as rabbit or other local names. So we need to understand these names and how people refer to and describe animals before we can ask questions about contact. From the interviews, the team also learned ways to better describe behaviors. For example, using terms like catch or capture instead of hunt when referring to interactions with small animals and rodents would often elicit more detailed responses than hunting, which people consider an activity specific to larger animals. Similarly, different probes were used to better elicit indirect interactions with animal presence in different environments. So not just how people directly contacted animals, but the different ways they may indirectly contact them through use of animals as medicine, or presence of animals in the household. So this involves eliciting different forms different forms of hearing or seeing or smelling animals that may elicit a broader potential set of human-animal interactions. The in-depth interview consisted of multiple sections, including information on occupation and livelihood activities that elicited the context and memory, experiences with Mpox, including date of symptoms that also helped elicit memory, as well as provided critical information on the clinical features of Mpox and possible interactions with people with similar symptoms that could point to human transmission. The primary focus of the interview was on animal exposures, and this included interactions with animals during the period when a case would have contracted the infection, as well as general animal interactions that could provide further context about the animals in their environment and common modes of contact in endemic areas. The in-depth interview tool included subsections with extensive probes for different types of interactions listed on the right and the contextual information. Finally, the team collected routine information on demographics, elicited feedback on the investigation form on the participants, and asked them if there was anything important that we maybe forgot to ask. And again, we always leave the recorder running after the interview, as that's when they think it's over and will often feel more free to ask or reveal other parts of information. After the interview, the team immediately jotted down notes about things that may have happened when the recorder was off or observations that may add context to our interpretation. For example, whether other people were present at the time that may have influenced some of the responses. Sometimes the dynamics of an interview may change midway when somebody enters or leaves the room, and that is something that should be noted. The quantitative phase of the research consisted of a survey with closed-ended questions that was conducted on paper and using a tablet and the Kobo software. And that was informed by and followed a similar structure of the in-depth interview. And the survey was administered in person by the research team. One important component of this survey was asking people to list the animals that they contacted within the past year and how they contacted them using the sheet on the right. Together, these quantitative data can provide information on how people are exposed to animals in areas of suspected zoonotic transmission, as well as the determinants of those exposures, like gender, culture norms, livelihoods, and food insecurity, as well as the frequency of certain behaviors. Somebody may tell you something in an in-depth interview that may be the only time that's ever happened to a person, or it may be a frequent part of life in those areas. For example, in one community, the team discovered that adolescents were keeping giant pouched rats or rabbits in captivity in their house prior to selling them, as shown in this picture. And other pets, such as squirrels, were reported to be kept for a while, but as entertainment prior to consumption or sale. These are both putative reservoirs for Mpox, and these kinds of behaviors result in opportunities for exposure risk. So the big motivating questions we are seeing the big motivating question was why we were seeing so many Mpox cases and in different types of areas. And our interviews started to answer that. We found evidence of human-to-human transmission happening within cities, alongside urban animal exposures that nobody had been looking for, including one case where a person reported sharing a taxi with a monkey, whose indirect contact with a person's luggage may have been the exposure event. That's not something you find through a standard clinical questioning. That kind of finding does two things. It points future investigation and case control studies, ecological surveys towards the right places and the right questions. In some communities, people had clearly been experiencing this disease for years without knowing what it was. Now that we know where to look, it can feed directly into practice, into communication, and to inform future research programs for both ecological and epidemiological investigations, and increase communication. And these small, specific findings can create concrete impact through communication and further research. And every investigation produces lessons, especially when you're working across different cultural and ecological contexts in a rapid evolving situation. The core tension in outbreak anthropology is between depth and good qualitative work that requires speed in these emergency situations. And the answer isn't to pretend that the tension doesn't exist. It's to be transparent about it and acknowledge the limitations. And consider these limitations in your interpretation and what further investigation would be needed. The flexibility of qualitative methods is a significant advantage in rapid response. Unlike structured questionnaires that you can't deviate from, an in-depth interview guide can be adapted on the fly. It's something we call iterative adaptation. You can follow a new lead, drop a section that isn't producing anything, add a probe that someone suggested the previous day. On a partnership point, this study would have not been possible without communities, everyone from local communities to national institutions. So when we're thinking about future public health emergencies, you need to start building those partnerships early. And one last point is that this MPOX study was designed as a small hypothesis generating investigation. And the value wasn't in producing definitive answers. It was in pointing the direction for larger, more definitive work. And finally, in the last minute, I'll quickly talk about how we can work to translate these findings to other teams and public health action. Social science and outbreak investigation works best when it is integrated into multidisciplinary teams from the beginning and not brought after these problems emerge. Each of these partnerships operates differently, from epidemiologists to clinicians and health workers to ecological investigators and veterinarians. With communities, this is perhaps the most important partnership and the most neglected. Communities are not just data sources, they are the people whose health is at stake and whose cooperation determines whether any of this work is possible and whether our interventions will succeed. Returning findings to communities in accessible formats and involving them in developing the recommendations is both ethically required, but also very practically wise. And so with that, I will say thank you and open the floor for any questions. I also want to point you to this course. This lecture was adapted from a module that I contributed to this broader course on Coursera in outbreak investigations. And each module takes a different disciplinary perspective, from the clinical perspective to the microbiology perspective to the anthropological perspective. And it really brings together the practical tools for research design in One Health outbreak investigations. So thank you, everybody, and happy to answer any questions in the few minutes that we have left.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you for that very insightful presentation. You've clearly highlighted how effective communication shapes the impact of research, and we'll return to some of these ideas later during the discussion session, the dedicated session for question and answers, which is shortly after these few announcements. So there are a couple of members on this call. I want you to pay quick attention to this. There are a couple of you guys here that need to rename yourself. If you can check, you would see that you are bearing the same name as the SCOF director because you used his link to join the call. So the quick steps to do this have been sent to the WhatsApp group, and I'll just be stating them here in case you've been having difficulties doing that. So how you go about it is to click on the option more on the chat page. You click on the option more, and then you click participants, then you click on the account with me in the bracket, for example, Confidence Osaru, and then you raise your hand and the rename option will come up. Then you should click unrenamed. This is very important to for record purposes. And also a link for the attendance is going to be sent to the WhatsApp group. We implore you to kindly fill the Google form link, so the certificate process will follow after that. So once again, thank you very much, Professor Sigan Friant. I hope I'm not butchering your name. But so now we're going to be taking the question and answers. If you have any question for Professor Friant, I'm going to be requesting that you raise your hand while we do that now. Anybody? Anybody? If you have any question for our first speaker, Professor Sigan Friant, feel free to speak now. You can unmute your mic and speak. Okay. I'm assuming we all understood everything into the bit of what she said. So I'm still waiting. Anybody? If you have any question at all. Okay, you can go ahead. Alphonsus, go ahead, please.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, sorry, I'm in transit. I hope I'm not introducing too much noise. Thank you, Prof, for the very erudite presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm somebody that's becoming more and more, I'm more of a quantitative researcher. That has been my background. And that's bulk of the experience I have in research. But in the last few years, I'm becoming more interested and seeing the usefulness of using qualitative methods for public health related research. And I appreciate the way you've broken it down and also shown your experience with the MPOS study in Nigeria. Mine is not much of a question, but more like I'm just looking at, I don't know if Prof could maybe go a little further and help some of us and maybe see if there are opportunities for us to participate in some of these studies that she's doing so that we could learn some of these very beautiful qualitative skills hands-on approach so that maybe you have a study going on. If you let some of us know, we'll see how we can possibly join and 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 participate in the study. That's just what I want to clarify, if that's possible. Thank you, Anova.
Great. Thank you for the comment and the question. I think that many of us, myself included, came into qualitative methods. Anthropology is not the same as qualitative methods. We use lots of quantitative tools. But myself, I become frustrated in all the things that are said when I'm administering a quantitative survey that don't go into the research. And this got me into understanding more in qualitative methods. And I think that lots of people have similar experiences, whether you're a veterinarian, a medical professional, epidemiologist, the conversations that you have surrounding the data collection are so rich and meaningful and shed a lot of insight. And qualitative methods can help us collect that in a more systematic way and analyze it more systematically to share that insight. So currently, I have some ongoing projects in Nigeria. Most of my projects are focused on hunting and wildlife trade. This one on mpox are for now are beyond the data collection stage, and another one on Lassa fever. And they all involve some degree of qualitative and interview methods alongside ecological, epidemiological, medical, biomedical methodologies. We're not currently looking for any new people to join the research team, but in the future, I always create a job ad, and I'd be happy, I would be delighted to share it with this group through Joseph and anyone else. and uh, as needs change. And you're also welcome if you have your own projects that you're working on designing and you're looking for mentorship or partnership or collaboration. You're also welcome to reach out to me since I put my contact up there as well.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much for that.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you.
Okay, so there is a question from Emmanuel Ededa. He said, is there any recommended material for learning qualitative research data analysis?
Yes, so I can share some resources after this meeting that can help walk you through some of them. So there's lots of online tools that help you to learn different software. Some of that software is freely available. So there's Deduce, I think, but requires an internet connection. And others, you have to pay a subscription fee, but you can also do coding simply in Microsoft Word. There's new packages in R, if you're familiar with that, and Vivo, Atlas TI are all different softwares that can be used for coding, but understanding the software is just part of it. There's a nice set of books on the toolkits for different types of qualitative analysis that I didn't go in depth in today. Then I'd be happy to share with you after this.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Friant. So one last question, and it says, I'm reading a message from Cynthia and Yakudo. Sorry if I butchered your name, but it says, thank you for the session, Ma. My question is, how does one determine which qualitative method is best suited for qualitative data collection? For instance, I would like to do a research on menopause. How do I know if mixed methods is better than FGD? Did you get the question?
Yes, sorry, my mute wasn't coming undone.
Okay.
Great question. So there's lots of factors that go into which methods to use. One is the sensitivity of the topic. So you mentioned a focus group discussion, FGD, which gets a lot of people together. So I would think that maybe people are not, at least in my own culture, people may not be as willing to open up in a group about their experience with menopause. So you may want to do more of an in-depth interview that's one-on-one, since it's maybe slightly sensitive and understanding that you want to keep, gendered focus group discussions, so female only if you do those. But I want to point out that mixed methods means mixing quantitative tools like structured questionnaires with qualitative methods. And those qualitative methods include in-depth interviews, focus group discussions, key informant interviews. So your question is actually, you can do an FGD and make it mixed methods. So your focus group discussion becomes mixed methods if you mix it with quantitative survey. So I could imagine that a mixed methods approach to a study on menopause may be a quantitative survey given across a population. So you know the age at which onset, the basic experience, combined with in-depth interviews or focus group discussions that give you more depth in your understanding that is limited in the structured questionnaire. So I hope that that gives some insight. And I also want to take the opportunity to highlight that qualitative data can be analyzed quantitatively and qualitatively. So even though you collect an in-depth interview, you still can analyze some of that data depending on how you conduct the interview in a quantitative manner that talks about how often somebody mentioned this. And so there's both qualitative and quantitative tools for data collection as well on data analysis. And this is why we call it mixed methods. There's lots of ways to bring these together in the data collection stage as well as in the analysis stage.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for that response. And this COF director is requesting to say something. Confidence, please, can you come up now? Confidence, are you there? Okay.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Sigan. And good evening, everyone on the call. My name is Confidence Osaru Chikere, the Standing Committee Director for Public Health in the Nigerian Medical Students Association. So I just want to use this medium to say thank you to the speaker for that wonderful session, and to everyone for joining. I think my introductory speech was, skipped. So yeah, I just want to also welcome you all to this event still, and I wish you all a fruitful learning session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So that'll be all for Professor Sigan friends. Thank you very much for your session. Really grateful. All right. So we'll be taking
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so we're moving to the next speaker, and that is Dr. Olubumi Ojelade, who will be speaking on health promotion and apologies, an health promotion and communication specialist, Diamonds and Pearls Earth Education and Social Development Initiative, Nigeria. And she'll be speaking on effective awareness and sensitization strategies for communicable and non-communicable diseases. Dr. Olubumi Ojelade, you have the floor, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. And can you hear me clearly from here?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So thank you so much, Prof, for that wonderful session. And I believe that we have all learned from it. I also gained a lot from that session. So taking it from her, I'll want us to dive straight into effective awareness and sensitization strategies for communicable and non-communicable diseases. Can you please move the slide? Move the slide, please. All right. So Prof had touched on this because we are considering both the communicable and non-communicable diseases. And for us, as medical students, public health advocates, we know that communicable diseases are infectious diseases, the disease that can spread from one person to another. While the non-communicable diseases are diseases that do not spread from person to person, maybe by touch and the likes. And so it's important for us to know the burden of the diseases in Nigeria. Generally, when it comes to prevalence, communicable diseases are high, and we have examples of the like of malaria, HIV, tuberculosis, and even immunization, diseases that can be reduced by immunization, but we still have them high. However, currently Nigeria is suffering from double burden of disease, because while it was higher for communicable diseases earlier, now we're also having a rise in non-communicable diseases like hypertension, diabetes, cancer, and the like. And when we talk about the incidence, I know if we have a quick poll here, if we have a quick poll here, even within this few months we have spent in the year, many of us would have suffered from malaria. And so it's still a major cause of disease here in Nigeria. And you see, we still have spots of cholera outbreak. We had one late last year. And even now, we have Lassa fever outbreak. But when it comes to non-communicable diseases, just like its word, the incidence is also increasing, whereas this is related more to lifestyle conditions. So we have a notice that the recording has stopped. Do you want to stop the recording or you want to continue? This is for the
All right.
organizers.
Thank you
Okay.
very Um,
All right. Okay, can I
yeah,
continue?
yeah, please continue.
Okay, so we also have to understand the geographic spread of the diseases. When it comes to communicable diseases, we have them more in the urban or the peri-urban areas. This does not mean we don't have them in the urban areas. But when it comes to non-communicable diseases, most times we say they are diseases of lifestyle, and many a times it has to do with people that are higher up in the wealth quintile, and therefore is more widespread in the urban area when compared to the rural areas. Please move the slide.
Sorry, please, can you please take a pause? I'm coming.
Okay.
Okay, you can go on, man. Thank you.
Okay. So we also need to consider the morbidity, the mortality. We understand most times when it comes to any of the diseases, they lead to ill health. We know that quite well. And even besides the not feeling well, we also have it affecting your performance in school, ability to go to work, and even the burden of having to care for somebody else. And some comes with long-term disability. And when it comes to non-communicable diseases, we know that they usually are diseases with chronic disability. They are there for a long time. Hypertension, diabetes, you keep managing the diseases. And this could actually lead to high economic burden for the families. And when it comes to mortality, both of them are contributing to mortality in Nigeria. When it comes to communicable diseases, we know that this has significant effects on children under 5, but not limited to children under 5. And when it comes to non-communicable diseases, most times the mortality comes up with the older people. Move the slide, please. So this gives us, breaks it down the more. We can see the prevalence for malaria, for example, for HIV/AIDS. I mean, talking about communicable diseases specifically, we can see the incidence, and this is for Nigeria, as it were, including Lassa fever, cholera. And I know we know what incidence means. We also see the prevalence. And some of these diseases, they are just everywhere in the nation. Malaria, HIV is not specific to any geographic location. Tuberculosis is all over Nigeria. Cholera, we know that it's linked to poor sanitation and flooding. And so that could happen anywhere. And even though Lassa fever has its seasonal peaks, especially in dry season, it's endemic to some states, but even a case of Lassa fever is already an epidemic. So it is important we understand this, especially when we are planning for our research, whether you're using a qualitative or quantitative or a mixed method. Understanding the burden of the disease is important. And I'll take this further when I go into the main crux. Please move the slide. Okay, so we can also see this. I'll share the slide so we can take the time. And we know that these statistics are not static, but these are the estimates that we have as of today. They keep moving up and down. Can we move the slide, please? We can also see the causes of mortality in Nigeria on a general note. And we see communicable diseases taking about 68%, while non-communicable diseases taking 29%, and then other causes like injuries and all the like taking 3%. Let's move the slide. So this is for the age. When you look at the age and look at what is the leading cause of diseases for each of the age group, we can see that for under 5, communicable diseases are leading up to the age of up to 14 years. And when we get to 15 to 29 years, they begin to, the non-communicable diseases are on the rise. But by the time you're getting to 30 years and above, communicable diseases become higher when it comes to mortality. Thank you. Move the slide. So why do we need all this information in the background? The topic is saying effective awareness and sensitization strategies. But I will have to ask us first, why? Why do we want to have effective awareness? And why do we want to have effective sensitization strategies? So in this, I say awareness and sensitization. I see strategies. I see effectiveness. Why? In this slide, you can see, if you are very familiar with Lagos, you know that this picture is from Lagos. You can see the yellow bus. You can see the pedestrian bridge. This is looking like somewhere around K2 for me. And you can see the yellow bus. You can see the pedestrian bridge. You can count the number of persons on the pedestrian bridge, maybe about 3 persons on the pedestrian bridge, while we have other people crossing the road. The pedestrian bridges were built to ensure that we limit accident injuries related to road accidents. But then people still choose to cross the road, not using the pedestrian bridge. This is telling us that social and behavior change is difficult. It's difficult for people to change from one point to the other. So you want to conduct an awareness, a sensitization on a health problem. And at times we feel when we just plan very wonderful programs, they happen. They do not just happen. The pedestrian bridge, for example, is an intervention, is a public health intervention to reduce road accidents. Yet people are not using it. Can you please move the slide? So you keep asking your questions also. Ask yourself, why? Why are our interventions not working? Why are the strategies put in place not working? Then, okay, so when we have the questions, then, okay, we realize they are not working. Then how can we make them work? In health promotion, we have, there are so many theories in health promotion and models of behavior change, but we will not bore us with many. Today, one of them is what we call the stages of behavior change. The fact that we have an intervention, a communication intervention, an health promotion intervention, any project at all, you want to conduct your study using qualitative or quantitative method or the mixed method, we need to understand that people don't just change automatically, and there are stages. So before we can answer the question how, we need to understand the stages to behavior change. You will find it in some models as 7 stages. You will find it also as 5 stages. I choose to just go with the 5 stages. The remaining 2 other stages that you find in the 7 stages are intertwined into these 5 stages. So the first stage is the pre-contemplation stage, the unaware. The person is not even aware there's a problem. You are the one that is identifying the problem. I mean, community people have been living their lives all this while. They don't see a problem. They've been drinking from a stream. They have some diseases, just like Prof said, that some of those problems have always been with the people, but probably they don't even call it what you call it. They don't even see it as a problem, or they relate it with some other things. That's the pre-contemplation stage. People are not aware. So if you're designing a strategy and you do not put into consideration, are these people even aware of the problem or not? That's one. Do they even see it as a problem or not? Then you would design a strategy or an intervention that will be good on the paper, good in programs, but then is not leading to any change. And I mean, that means it is not effective. Then from this stage, people move to the contemplation stage. So at this stage, they are aware of the problem and they have a desire for a change. And then after being aware is not enough. From this stage So you could have a program that just ends at awareness stage. People are aware, and then probably it moves them to pre-contemplation. They are from pre-contemplation to contemplation. But you don't want your program to stop there. You don't want your intervention to stop there. They are aware, and so what? And from there, there is an intention to take an action. That's the preparation stage. Okay, now I'm aware this is a problem. Lassa fever is a problem. I remember when we were conducting an human-centered design research in Ondo States for Lassa fever. Many of the community people said, we don't know when rats become a problem. We eat rats and it's delicious, especially the bush rats. So we don't know where you come with this problem to say that Lassa fever is caused by rats. There was an FGD, focus group discussion. And right there, another woman said, hey, even though I've never believed in Lassa fever, but it was confirmed that her father-in-law died as a result of Lassa fever. That he had been sick for a while, but then they didn't know what was it, but later it was found that it was Lassa fever. And that statement of hers jacked other people came alive and said, really? Because initially it looked like we don't believe that this problem exists. But someone that is their friend, someone they know, they see every day, confirms that Lassa fever is for real. And then the questions turned around. Oh, so that is the case. So what do we do? That's preparation. Again, you don't want your intervention to stop at that. You want people to take action. Action is when they actually take, desired action towards the desired behavior, maybe preventive behaviors and the likes. And they don't just take the action, they also maintain the action, and then they become advocates. They are the ones that can speak for it and say, this is for real, and this is what we need to do. Please, let's move the slide. So again, when we're not planning effective awareness and sensitization strategies, I hear someone clearly asking a question about menopause, conducting a research on menopause and whether she is to use FGD or a mixed method. And I want to ask, before you come up with, you even want to talk about awareness or sensitization being effective, the strategies being effective, let's go back to the 5 W's of epidemiology. You need to know who is affected. Who is affected? And that's why we had the initial slides to look at what is the problem, how does it affect the younger generation, how does it affect the older generation. You need to identify the population at risk and the individuals that are affected by the disease. Then what is the problem? What? Is there even a problem? You need to understand the disease itself. You need to understand the symptoms, the transmission, the impact on health. Because if it is not a problem, then what are you trying to address? And you need to also know the when. You are trying to design an effective awareness and sensitization strategy, but then you need to answer the question, who? Who are you designing for? And what is the problem? At times, it might not follow, like you may not start with the who. It might even start with the what. What is the problem? Is there a problem at all? Then who is affected by this problem? And when is this problem happening? When it comes to zoonotic diseases, mpox, Lassa fever, cholera, cholera is not zoonotic. I just mentioned that when it comes to diseases, some diseases have seasonal pattern. For example, we see a case, dry season, you have bush burning and all the like, and you have some of these rats coming out of the bushes. Is it regular? Is it a regular problem? Is it a sporadic problem? Is it all year round? Does it come with a particular season? You need to know, because this will determine whether the strategies you put in place will be effective or not. And then you need to understand where. Does it have a geographical location? You need to know that. And then why? Why? You need to know why of the disease, why of your what, even why of your who, before you can go ahead. So I'll wrap up this presentation around this. For you to design an effective awareness or sensitization strategy, you need to answer this question. Please move the slide. And we'll just use the next few slides to look at it again. I bring out the question again, how. So now that you know your who, your when, your why, then you come back to ask yourself, so how do I answer these questions? How do I design an effective awareness and sensitization strategy? So in health promotion, awareness is the lowest level. Being aware of something does not mean you're really knowledgeable about it. Like, have you heard about cancer before? Yes, I've heard about cancer. Okay, do you know types of cancer? Do you know some cancers that we can have? No, I just know that there are cancers. I'm aware of cancer, but I don't know much about cancer. Okay, do we know the risk factors of cancer? No, I don't know. So when we are designing strategies, we want it to go beyond awareness. We also want it to go beyond sensitization. We want it to come to the stage of behavior change, where people take right action to address issues, because eventually, what are we trying to do? Reduce the burden of diseases, reduce mortality, reduce morbidity. So this slide tells you what to do to identify, to design an effective awareness and sensitization strategy. Number one, you have to identify the problem and develop your priority behavior metrics. What is the problem? Time will not permit us. I would have asked you, and if you can, just put in the chat box, identify one problem. So when you identify the problem, you can use the chat box. Identify a problem. What's the problem? Okay? Then from this, you now develop your priority behavior matrix. So for example, you might say the problem is, I'll go back to the menopause example. Many women do not understand what they are going through during menopause. They don't understand. The problem is that they don't understand menopause. Then you ask yourself, what do you want people to do? So what do you want? What is the behavior? What do you want them to do? Now you want them to understand what menopause is, so that it does not give them unnecessary psychological disturbance. They don't go and spend money where they should not spend money and all the like. Then you define your communication objectives. Having understood the problem, what is your goal? What do you want to achieve with your program, with your strategy? And then you conduct an audience segmentation. We have the primary audience, we have the secondary audience, and we have the tertiary audience. Then from there, you develop your communication matrices. And then you design your strategy or strategies. And most times, we use multiple strategies. So I'll link this with Prof's presentation. So when you're conducting your research, your research would address some of these issues, if not all. Because it's during your research that you understand what the problem is, the magnitude of the problem, and the rest. And then not just understanding the magnitude of the problem, you want to know how your audience is thinking, who are the people affected. At times you just sit down and you feel you're seeing the end result, but then you don't even understand where the primary issues are coming from. Then you design your strategy, you develop your monitoring and evaluation framework. If it is not monitored, it is not done. And then you implement your intervention and you keep evaluating and refining. You keep monitoring, evaluating, and refining. Please, let's move. I'm looking at the time. So I'm giving an example here. So an example here we have, for example, we have a priority health area. We can have family planning, we have malaria, we have gender-based violence, sanitation and hygiene. We could have Lassa fever, Mpox, and so on. So what is the problem for family planning, for example? There is low uptake of family planning, or there is spousal disapproval of family planning, or there are myths and misconceptions about family planning. So you understand, you identify the problems, because you want to design, you don't just design for what it is not identified as a problem. Then what is your priority behavior? What do you want people to do? You want them to take up family planning. That is to address low uptake of family planning. You want spousal discussion and approval of family planning to take place to address the issue of spousal disapproval of family planning. You want people to reject myths and misconceptions. and so on and so forth. So when you develop this, you know what the problem is, the health problem you're addressing, what are the problems with this health area, and what are the priority behaviors you want to achieve. Next slide. Then I mentioned communication objectives. So based on this, you know, you have seen the problem and you have your priority behaviors, then you clearly define your communication objectives. And what is a communication objective? It's a clear and concise statement of the intended impacts of the communication efforts. Communication efforts here, speaking to your communication strategy, communication intervention. What do you want to do with it? What do you want to achieve with your communication efforts, with the strategies? And it also answers the questions of what new behavior you want or you intended from the audience. What is the priority behavior you want them to move towards? At times, you have this splitted as communication objectives and behavioral objectives. If I'll simply put it, at times when we split this, when we say communication objectives, say, what do you want people to know? But it does not end at what they know. We have many, we have people that know that smokers are liable to death, but they still smoke. They know that, but they don't, the behavior is not aligning. Okay. Then the behavioral objective says, what do you want people to do? And when you set this, it must be smart. The smart here, you know, what is SMART? Anybody? I'll give you that. Put it on the chat box. The acronym SMART, SMART objectives. Please put it. Move the slide. Okay. This just takes us a bit down. I'm looking at the chat box. Please, SMART objective, type it. What does it mean? SMART. Okay. So communication objectives. So let's say you're having a campaign. You're having a communication intervention. You have a program. Thank you. I can see that. I can see that measurable, achievable, simple, specific. Okay. Yes, hearty, time-bound, accurate. I'm clapping for you from here. So you're designing a campaign, and in your communication objectives, you want to know. So I give this know, feel, do. From your objectives, your communication objectives should move from a know. When they know, it should bring about a feel, a believe, and then a do. So from your communication objective, what knowledge should the audience have that they do not have? And based on this knowledge, what attitude should the audience have? What should they feel when they have this knowledge? How does it make them feel? And then do. What practice should the audience begin to take up? But I want you to know that when it comes to health promotion, health communication interventions, they may not always always follow the SMART criteria. They may not always follow that, especially when data is not available. But they, as much as possible, must stay within that. Please move the slide. I'm looking at the time. All right. So from this, you go to your audience segmentation. I'd mentioned it, so I'm just using this as an example. You move to your audience segmentation. And for the audience, we have the primary, the secondary, the tertiary. So looking at an example of gender-based violence, what is the problem? The problem is, I know what you want them to do. That's the first one we have here. Prompt reporting of cases. That's the priority behavior. Prompt reporting of cases. And also, we have another priority behavior, destigmatization of gender-based violence survivors. We want this to be destigmatized because people are not reporting, because at times when they report, they are stigmatized. So in this case, if you are looking at priority behavior 1, prompt reporting of cases, who is your primary audience, or who are your primary audiences? In this case, who should report the case? It's a gender-based violence survivor, him or herself. Then the secondary audience here may be the significant others, the parents, the friends, depending on who is close to this person. That's the secondary audience. We still have other audiences that will be reporting. So if the person affected himself is not reporting, who is the primary audience, then we have the secondary audience, who is the like the parent, the guidance that the person had reported, maybe a teacher in school, maybe a community or religious leader. Then we also have the media who can also report this, even though it's not happening to them directly, but they are also an audience that should report. So if you are designing an intervention, a communication campaign for these, you consider these three audiences. So what is the right program message for the GBV survivor? You will plan that. What is the right one for the secondary audience, that is the parent, the guidance, as the case may be, which your research would have given you insight into who are the audiences for this particular health issue. Then the tertiary, the media. And you can't dissociate this from your research. They work hand in hand. When you're designing your research questions, you need to know what you want to find out. You are answering the 5 W's. So this will go into your research questions, research objectives, and then you're sure you are measuring the right thing so you can get the right answer. Let's move on. I have used that as an example. Let's move on again. These are more examples for hygiene. So having known all this, okay, you have designed your matrices, you know the audience, and after knowing your audience, you understand what the problem is with your audience, you design your communication matrices. That is, for example, how could you get the information across to them? Where are they located? Where is your audience located? At times, for example, just, oh, digital media is working. Digital media is working. Your audience, are they on digital media? Oh, everybody is on social media. Everybody is on social media. Your particular target audience is the person or are the people on social media. So you just don't design because it looks beautiful. That is what will not make it effective. You design because it is needed. You find out that this is what works. And this is why qualitative research, in fact, mixed method, I'm a big advocate for mixed method. You know the numbers, and then you understand the depth of the issues. Okay, so having known this, we have so many strategies. We have advocacy as a strategy. Advocacy, we address issues around policy, environment, resource mobilization. When you understand the problem, is there a problem that is about policy? Is there a problem about resource? Because this will tell you what strategy you are to use. If it is that, then you have to look at the problem. You have to design strategy around advocacy. Is it a problem? Okay, we also have mass media communication. And for this, we have the traditional and we have the digital media. Is it a problem that we can use the mass media to address? Okay, because we use this to generate community dialogue. We have the print materials, the flyers, and all the likes. Could it address this? You have this answered from your research. I remember there was one of the researches we conducted, and we found that for that particular intervention, that billboards were not working, and we had invested so much money into billboards. But other methods that we're not thinking about, the other interventions were working more. Not that the billboards were not working, but you also do cost analysis, and you realize that the results you're getting from the billboard is so negligible compared to the investment. So why not direct the fund into what is bringing more results, the low-hanging fruits? We have community mobilization and so on and so forth. You can move the slide, please. Time is fast spent. And you can use different methods. You can hold workshops, school programs, faith-based programs, religious gatherings, the same thing, occupation-based, trade unions, like Okada riders. You have hairdressers and all the like. I remember when HIV/AIDS campaign started, there were so many activities with the hairdressers because they are working with sharp objects with the barbers. So your research helps you have this understanding of who to engage and even the methodology that will work best. Kindly move the slide. And yes, we have used this a lot in Nigeria. It has worked. I don't know if you know the Checkamo campaign. That's for tuberculosis case finding. Nigeria have been able to reduce stigmatization when it comes to HIV and AIDS. And we have so many around polio campaign, malaria. Please move the slide. Malaria campaigns, ITN. But this does not come without challenges. We also have the challenges. We still have the challenges of misinformation. The internet warriors, the keyboard warriors. Anybody can get behind the keyboard and write anything. And we have to do the fact checking and all the like. We have limited resources. Communication campaigns are usually resource intense, very expensive. And you know what? The results are not immediate many a times because it has to do with behavior change. And because of this, it's many funders, investing into social and behavior change interventions always come with a lot of questions. Monitoring and evaluation have been a big problem when it comes to our campaigns. There are so many campaigns, but this can be addressed once you have your monitoring and evaluation framework developed right from the beginning. Most times when it comes to these programs in Nigeria, they are partner driven. And currently we are resource scarce in Nigeria and cost intensive. I've mentioned that. Please move on. Please move on. Okay. And so to achieve the goal, please let's learn to collaborate, partnership and collaboration. Many a times we feel, oh, I have this great research idea. I want to work on mpox. I want to work on Lassa fever. I can do it. We can't do it alone. It's good you find out other people that are working in the same space and partner together. As core scientists, you partner with social scientists. You partner with individuals, maybe as a research student, you might partner with another research student. You might partner with a researcher, not necessarily a student. There may be government partnership, we have NGOs, private organizations, and so on and so forth. So please, don't let's play with partnership. Please move. Okay. So what are the key takeaways? Behavior change takes time. And I'm looking at one question we have here. Behavior change takes time. And please, you don't work for the community. You work with the community. We co-create. You identify the problem, and then you co-create the solution. If you go and design a strategy that looks good to you, so this have come up so many times where you find out that some people don't have good source of drinking water, and wells are, we have wells drilled in particular places, but they still go back to that stream of water where they get cholera. Why? Because you don't ask questions, it was not co-created with them. Only to say that is where they used to worship their grandfathers or worship their gods, and they can't drink water from where you have drilled the borehole because that's where they worship their gods. So you co-create, they find solution. They are always know that community people are brilliant people. And when I say community here, we have different communities. We have community of practice. So community may not necessarily mean where people just live. It may be a community of practice. Whatever community you engage in, you work with them and not for them. And no single strategy works alone. Most times it's a mix of strategies. Mix of strategies work better. And also, please, community engagement is essential. Know how to engage community, understand their language, respect the community. You don't come like, I know it and I'm coming to bring it to you. Prepare for community dynamics and respond appropriately. Most times when it comes to intervention, it does not follow a linear pattern. And Prof mentioned the other time you iterate. Yeah, be open to partnership and collaboration. And thank you very much for having me. Over.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. That was a very insightful presentation. And we're going to be moving straight up because of our time to the, please, can you hear me?
Clearly, I can hear you.
Yeah, so we're going to be moving straight up to the question and answer session. So if you have any question for Dr. Olubumi Ojelade, you can feel free to either send it through the chat box, it will be read, or you can raise your hands and begin to speak. So any question or questions for Dr. Olubumi Ojelade? You can either raise your hands and begin to speak, or you can type them in the chat box.
If I have your permission, there is a question in the chat box already.
Okay, I thought you answered that the other time. That's why I...
Okay, no. So there's a question here. It says, if evidence alone is rarely enough to change public behavior, Should the true measure of a future public health leader be the ability to translate research into trust rather than just policy? So thank you very much for this, your very good question, Farida Lawal. The crux of this presentation actually is tying this together. You don't just draft design policy, you build trust. You need both. We need both. You build trust. Trust with who? Again, when you go back, you understand the problem. Where do we have the distrust? Who do we need to build trust with? How do we build the trust itself? Even building trust does not happen like the snap of the finger. So yes, we need to build trust, and then also it's not we just policy will never work. It will never work. It will never work. So both of them comes hand in hand to give us results. Even at that, it takes time. It takes some time so that you don't build yourself up like, oh, it's not working. It's actually working. But for you to see like the very big result, it takes time. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Any other question? Anybody else?
Okay, good afternoon. I don't have a question, more of a statement, but I can't find out to raise my hand. That's why I unmuted directly. So mine is, you mentioned how like all these frameworks now. So can we say that behavior change is like an investment? Because you, even during your when you spoke about the takeaway, you spoke about how behavior change takes time. So do we look at it from the viewpoint of it being an investment, even right from time? So we don't look at it as a do and we are done affair. We look at it as, oh, we have to do it and wait for it to manifest. Yes, that's, should I say, number one? Yes.
Okay. If I will react to that, yes. Behavior change interventions, they are investments that do worth it. They are investments and they do worth it. So one, it's not something you just do once and you're tired of doing that one. And two, know that it is working. And know that three, if anything would really become sustainable, it has to be by behavior change. So we keep doing our beats, at least whatever we can do, you keep doing it, keep at it, because eventually if we can keep at it, then we get to the breaking points that you now be like, wow, behavior change is like going to the root of a matter. It may take a while before you can see the effect on the leaves, but it's an investment that worth it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Answer to the second question. Have you ever had a time where you had to deal with should I say culture shock during your being on the field? Maybe they something was done in your presence or something was said in your presence that like, oh, so things like this still exist. And how were you able to manage? Like, I'm coming more from the social angle now. How were you able to like manage that time?
Okay.
Did you react? Did you react immediately, or yes, they just want to know.
Okay, thank you very much. So as a professional, you should be prepared for this. Have I experienced that? I may not be able to give an example right away, but as a professional, just be prepared that there will be cultural shocks, there will be things that you see that are not aligned with what you have always known or believe or practice. But it is required of you as a professional to maintain a straight face, even smile, and then you just keep your professional permit me to use your language, tease and composure. You just keep at it. You don't laugh. At that point, you don't laugh because then you make your whoever you're engaging with, you make them look stupid, or they might start keeping information and the like. So please, I'll encourage us as future leaders in public health. Public health will expose you to a lot of things. Yeah, I can see one of the pictures shared by Professor, where, I mean, she have seen that. I mean, she's coming from a different culture entirely, and then you find yourself in another culture. So let me just quickly give an example. This one, I will not call it cultural shock. I was on the field in one of the nomadic settlements in Katsina State, and they offered me this milk, fura de nunu, in one calabash like that. I mean, thick rural area. So when they offered me, and I understand that that is their way of being hospitable and all the like. And if I reject this, they might not even also accept me. So I don't take fura de nono. I will not even take it from restaurants, not to talk of in a thick nomadic settlement. I don't understand what. So I took the fura de nono. I put it close to my lips. It didn't touch they just touched my lips like this. I thanked them. I smiled. I just said, thank you, it's okay. I stylishly moved around as if I was trying to look at something and cleaned off my lips. I didn't say, no, I don't take this. No, I can. No, you don't do that. You just have to be professional. And then you manage it. And that's how to go about it. Thank you. Have I answered your question?
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. So, you already responded. She said you did. Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Rubumi or Jaradi? Anybody else? Anybody else? All right. In the absence of any, thank you very much, Dr. Rubumi. It's nice to have you with us, and we wish you well from here. So,
Good afternoon.
what? All right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
good afternoon. I'm not actually a medical student, or I came like into this Zoom meeting for out of curiosity. And in one of the slides, I noticed a word that I didn't understand, GBV survivals. And I'm asking who are they?
GBV is a shortened form for gender-based violence. Gender-based violence survivors, people that have had experience of gender-based violence and they are surviving from the violence. That's the meaning. Gender-based.
And I've also got another question. Like I also on the slide, I noticed the phrase use of ETN.
ITN.
Yeah, ITN. Excuse me.
Pardon me. Yeah. So ITN is insecticide treated nets. This mosquito nets that we use to sleep inside is called insecticide treated nets. Sorry, I should have had a slide to give the breakdown of the acronyms. I apologize for that. Insecticide treated net. I don't know if you have seen a mosquito net before, the one that we used to cover the bed and sleep inside. That's the ITN.
I've seen it.
We call it ITN.
Thank you.
all right. Thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Okay. Mr. Confidence, please, are you here?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, Mr. Ayodeji. Good evening, everyone. My name is Confidence Osaro, Director, Standing Committee on Public Health. I just want to say thank you to the speaker, Dr. Olubunmi Ojelade, for your time and for honoring our invitation and joining us this evening. Say may the Lord bless you and keep you. And to everyone that has been on the call up to now, so thank you for joining. And yeah, thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Samuel.
All right then. So we'll be bringing the meeting to a close now. We didn't start with a prayer, but I'll just end with a prayer. Lord, we thank you.
Hello, sorry, we are
Yeah.
not. There's something I need to say before we close.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Yeah.
I think, okay, this is Dr. Joseph Ibukwe. I'm the one speaking. Yeah. So one of the major reasons why we organized this webinar was to actually equip the major medical student and every other allied association with skill sets. Like most of these topics that were to discuss on research design for using qualitative or quantitative method, and also setting up a sensitization of campaign program. The end point of it is so that we can have the skill set to apply for grants to execute this kind of research. There is a society, Royal Society for Tropical Medicine and Hygiene, that offer early career researchers, which I believe most of you are included, every year to carry out research in any part of the world that have to do with tropical medicine or global health related research. And I think the grant is worth £5,000. And this comes up yearly for research from lab-based research to translational research, implementation research, or policy research along the line of tropical medicine or global health. Like now, the discourse we have on Mpox, you can do a CAP study, that's knowledge that is done practice in a community on Mpox, or any disease of interest. It may be communicable or non-communicable. So why we really design this webinar is so that we can educate us on this possible research and so that all of us can be encouraged to apply for this grant. The call most of the time come out early of the year and close by April, but for this year, I think there's a little delay. The call is not in time, it will come out. Lesson that you learn from be deployed.
Dr. Igbo, please,
Community.
can you repeat your last two sentences? The network was breaking.
Oh, okay. So what I said is that by most the Royal Society for Tropical Medicine and Hygiene do give early career researchers. That means those people they call early career researchers are majorly students in their final year, maybe your master's or PhD student, or the summary is that you've never won a grant up to £5,000 before in your name. And that's the major criteria. If you have never won any grant in your name up to £5,000, you are eligible to apply for this grant. And at least most of them, the lesson that you must have learned from the two lectures we've had can help you to design a project, whether qualitative or quantitative, along any disease of interest that you may have. And the call will be out soon for this year, but most of the time it comes out early January and by April. But I think there's a delay this year, but hopefully you should be on the lookout. You can check their website, Royal Society, rstmh.org. I think I can put that on the chat box. You can always check their website for the update of the call for the grant. So, but my major goal is so that after this lecture, we all can come back. We'll share the slides and also the YouTube channel too. You can always access this discussion and lectures on the YouTube channel. The link has been shared on the WhatsApp group. So you can go through it and then you cannot come up with a research design on your own. You can always source for help. As Dr. Sergeant Frank have said, if you have any design, you need some support, you can always reach out to, or you can reach out to me or Dr. Jela. They will be so glad to help you with your project design and all, so that we can apply for this grant. Also, I was told this webinar was supported by the virtual research clinic of the Irua Specialist Teaching Hospital in Irua, Edo State. And they are the one that provided the platform we're using for this webinar. Also, the YouTube channel, I was told to announce to us that we can always subscribe. The link will be shared on the WhatsApp. You can subscribe to the WhatsApp, the YouTube channel, so that you can get updates from the virtual research clinic on the activities of the clinic. So thank you very much. There's one other announcement that I want to make, but I don't know, Sam, I hope you can give me just 2 minutes for someone. Victor, if there's an announcement you need to make. I think there's someone that raised up a hand, but I just wanted to make the announcement before we round up.
Okay, so are you saying you want to take the announcement now?
No,
Hello.
Victor, yeah, now. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, please.
Hello,
Go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
All right, beautiful. Okay, I'm Victor by name. I'm Victor Adekunle. So very quickly, I just want to introduce us to a particular platform called Certifier. So the link is certifier.io, tiyer.online. So what this platform does is that it assists educators, trainers, NGO organizations in creating certificates or giving out certificates for their students. So we found out that certificates or offering certificates to students or giving out certificates to students helps them position themselves for opportunities, for global opportunities, number one. Number two, it also helps um, the organizers. It helps the organizers get more visibility, number one, and also help them get more post event interaction because of people who begin to post the certificates, and then it also like wraps up the program in case it is a future edition. So this platform itself um, is going to be used even for offering certificates in this program, and then it automates all of the process of certificate creation. So meaning that you don't need to start reaching out to everyone manually. What is your name, and then getting the name, and then all of those scattered process of offering certificates to attendees or to people. So it takes all of those manual process and automates everything. So basically, there's just a back end where you update the certificate and then you send a link to the students. The student gets your certificate, get their certificate, and then the certificate is issued to them without you needing to be there. So if you organize events or if you organize a program or if you are planning to the certificate platform is for you. And then second of all, one of the features we'll be rolling out towards March is the feature to be able to monetize certificates. So probably if you hold free trainings and you're looking for a way to monetize them, you could get on the platform, get an account today, and so that you'll be part of the first persons to experience that tool of monetizing. When I say monetizing a certificate, I mean people get to pay on the platform for the certificate, while the platform itself offer the certificate. I don't know if you get me. So I don't want to take any more time. But basically, if you need to get the platform, just search for CERTIYER certifier.online, and then go create an account. There are other benefits for early users that get on board. And if you also want to partner with us, you can always signify and then reach out to us and certify, and then we get to partner with you, help you. All right, beautiful. Thank you for dropping, sir.
Thank you very much, Victor. Thank
Yep. So
Okay.
even partner also, you can always reach out for your events, and then thank you for having me. Thank you,
All right.
sir.
Welcome. Dr. Bukwe, do you still have anything?
No, nothing from my end. Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know whether Dr. Alfonso want to say a closing word before, or Dr. Ike. I know they're on the call. They are the one that gave us this platform.
Okay.
Dr. Ike from High Stage.
Okay.
I'm sorry, please. Can I drop my contact details in the chat room? Is it fine for those on the partner?
Yes, please, you can drop it on the chat box, and if you're on the WhatsApp group, you can drop it there as well.
All right, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so Mena Iede, I can see you're raising your hands. Is there a reason for that, or is it a mistake? Okay. So in the absence of any other contributions, thank you all for joining, and the meeting is now closed. Thank you very much. You can exit the call.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.